this Wednesday, and we look forward to having a great show tonight. I see Dave and Bo are here, so let's get the little commercial stuff out of the way. As you can see, it's the Sports Crib, home of the Sports Crib Network. You can subscribe and donate to our channel using our Cash App, $ JE King 3. And with that, let's kind of get on with the show here. I see Dave is here chomping at the bit. I got a lot of questions for him today. How you doing there, Dave?
Hey, James, doing okay.
And Bo, we missed you last week. How you doing, man?
Good. How are you guys?
All right. Hey, man, I look. Oh my goodness, look there. I see new additions to the studio and everything here. That Roku thing must be going all right there, huh, Bo?
Slowly but surely, working my way through this thing.
Hey man, I have Roku on my TV. Come on, get a plug in there now.
Yeah, so the show that I'm on, the daily show I'm on, I should say, is it's called Coast to Coast. It's on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network on Roku.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you have a partner, and you have a twist to your show, right?
So I mean, the Daily Show is it's pretty cool. So I had some of my shows on there anyway, and then basically they brought a couple other hosts all together for this. So the Philly sports guy, Jamie Pags, is one of my co-hosts there, and then Jay McLovin is the other one. And so it's coast to coast because the Philly sports guy obviously is in Philly, and McLovin is a Dallas Cowboys fan, and of course I'm out here on the West Coast. So yeah, we span the coast, talk everything sports. But yeah, it was pretty fun. In fact, earlier today we had the governor of Pennsylvania on our show this morning.
Oh, okay.
Very cool.
Yeah, we were talking a little Jason Kelsey as far as, his retirement and what he means to the team, what he's meant to the city. And Shapiro is a big Philly sports fan. So
that was a tearjerker of a speech that he gave.
It was a great speech. And it was so it was everything you would expect out of Jason Kelsey.
Yeah. So how are you doing tonight, Dave?
Doing all right. Getting ready to head down to the Big Ten wrestling tournament on Saturday and Sunday at the University of Maryland at the Xfinity Center.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. I got my friend from Pittsburgh sent me some new gear, so I have some additions here. Not a big hockey fan, but anyway, we got the little steel cup there, and hey, that's not a gray beard there. That's the collar to the shirt now. But anyway, thanks to my friend up there in Pittsburgh, James Pryor. We've been friends ever since we used to cook together. So that tells you how long we've been friends. But anyway, let's get on with the show, and let's start it appropriately. It's raining out here in California, so hey, what can I say? Thank God I don't live on a hill. So, Dave, let's get started with Sue's Corner here.
All right. So, this is kind of an interesting one. So, Sue's Corner. One of the highlights on Dave and my Alaska trip 2 years ago was going up to the summer home for training the mush dogs for the Iditarod. We have never seen such joyful dogs and learned so much about the dogs and their training, and even got to go on a training run with the dogs pulling an oversized golf cart. This year, a problem occurred. About 100 miles into the race, a moose attacked lead musher Dallas Civet's team. Civet had to shoot the moose with a handgun, not an easy kill. One of Civet's dogs was injured in the encounter and flown to Anchorage to be evaluated by veterinarians. the Iditarod said the dog Falu was in critical condition on Tuesday after undergoing surgery. Under race rules, Survey had to stop to gut the moose before continuing the 1,000-mile race. Following teams must help gut the animal when possible. The rule states no team may pass until the animal has been gutted and the musher killing the animal has proceeded. Any other animal killed in defense of life or property must be reported to a race official, but need not be gutted. That's kind of interesting sign of sportsmanship. They want to make sure that the meat doesn't go to waste and that the musher isn't penalized for an animal attack he had no control over. Survey is not the first Iditarod racer to encounter a moose. In 1985, a moose was killed during the Iditarod after it attacked the musher, Susan Butcher, and killed 2 of her dogs. Butcher, who won the Iditarod 4 times prior, dropped out of the race after the attack. In February 2022, a large bull moose attacked another Iditarod musher, Bridget Watkins, and trampled her dog sled team while they were on a training run. Alaska public media reported. A Frenchie called for help, shot and killed the moose. These are no bullwinkles. And that's no kidding. I mean, because I know I've been to Yellowstone a number of times, and a lot of people that they see these moose grazing, you know, like in the early evening, and even elk, and they're walking right up within 3 or 4 feet to get this picture of, you know, of the moose. And they don't realize how dangerous theyese animals are. They're huge.
Huge.
It's absolutely huge.
They are massive.
Yeah.
And the thing about these dogs that we saw 2 years ago, the one musher that we talked to, he was originally from the Baltimore area, but he's been living up in Alaska for years. But during COVID, you know, things got so bad because they weren't making money. You know, he was eating ramen noodles, he said, so that he could feed his dogs fish and salmon. He was sacrificing his own diet for that of his dogs. That's how dedicated these dog handlers are. But anyway, I kind of a cool story from Sue there.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. They have to wait till they gut the animal out. I mean, I guess in a way it makes sense, but just not something you think about.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, but you're talking about an animal that'll feed a family for a year, 6 months. Mm-hmm. You know, 400 or 500 pounds of meat. You know, and that's probably that's a little one. You know, you're talking about a bull moose. You're probably talking about closer to a ton, 800-900 pounds. Yeah.
No, it's a big creature. There's no doubt.
I've never really gotten into hunting. It's you know, it's a little.
No, I don't have anything against hunting. I've just never gained any enjoyment from killing things. You know, that's just me. But I respect the sport of hunting. So.
Well, I always just looked at it as it still costs you more to go hunting than it does to just go buy some meat.
Well, yeah. I've never, you know, if you don't give a rabbit the gun, it ain't fair. I mean, you know, to me, you know, but.
No, it's one of the things that always made me laugh. You know, rabbit's feet are lucky. It's like, well, it wasn't for that rabbit.
Yeah. I mean, but I like good venison, a good venison steak prepared properly, or
jerky. Venison jerky is fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I used to be a chef. I understand, you know, good meat and all that, but, you know, if, you know, grizzly bear a little bit different, you know, but, you know, Bambi or, you know, like some of those little animals that, you know, if you don't have a gun, if they don't have a gun too, but, you know, like, hey, but a deer, you know, a deer can be, you know, defending its you know,
well, what I think the rule is if you're out there hunting the deer, you have to put musk on.
Yeah,
they'll go after you.
Yeah, you know, hey, sitting in a tree, throwing the corn down and waiting for the deer. I think that's a little, you know.
Turn the high beams on your truck.
Oh, All right, guys, let's get a little serious here. I think I got some things to talk about. Let me see. Oh, so many things, so many things. Okay, let's start, I guess, with where did I start? Okay, we got Susan. Let's start with NCAA football. Now, some of these things I agree with, and some of them I think are just really good things to talk about here. And the first is a thing an article I ran across where they were talking about the 40-yard dash. And I've kind of said this in some cases, but in this case, it said that is the 40-yard dash becoming obsolete at the NFL Combine due to advanced analytics? God, where's Mr. Scott? I got to get there. So I think we'll start with you, Dave. And what do you think about that? I mean, it's
I don't think that
it's transferred into talent. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that you can take advanced analytics can't substitute for timing, but in the recent combine, there were a number of injuries, including some highly ranked guys. There was a Penn State lineman that I think it was on his second 40-yard dash pulled a hamstring. There were several hamstrings that were pulled. And I think that most of the injuries centered on linemen, although there was a wide receiver that he really had a great 40 time, but he gimped up. Now, for the wide receivers, I can see where 40 time is valuable, but for like a defensive lineman, how many times are they going to be running 40-yard dashes? And I think that some teams may be more interested in their 10-yard intervals, especially that first 10 yards to show what kind of burst they have coming off the line.
That's what I was saying, that first 10-yard break.
Right. And so maybe if they limited it to like a 20-yard dash for the linemen, you could reduce the dangers of injuries. And I know that a number of linemen, after the one guy got hurt, they just stuck with to their first time. They ran 140 and that was it. Instead of, I think they run two. Is it 2 or 3? I think it's maybe 2.
Yeah, it's 2.
And then they have their official time. But I think particularly for the linemen, I still see the value in having those times. But I think for the linemen, maybe they can adjust it to like a 20-yard dash to reduce the number of injuries. And hey, if they want to run one, just run one. And because I think that some teams will evaluate off of that first 10-yard split.
Good evening there, Don. How we doing? I don't think we're on mute. Don, can you hear us? Can you hear us?
I can barely hear you.
It's got to be on your end. Where are we going here? Let me see.
My connection's not good again, so bear with me.
Well, we can hear you. What do you think about the 40-yard dash?
It's always on my end, James. Always on my end.
What do you think about the 40-yard dash? Is it becoming obsolete because of analytics?
Well, it's nice to have that speed, but if you can't catch,
short and sweet, huh, Don? Okay. What's your thoughts on that, Bo?
Yeah, so I mean, I like it for the receivers, DBs. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, at the combine. But yeah, so I like
it's a tool to measure what kind of speed you have. I mean, been doing it for years.
Yeah, but are they going to be doing it next year? No, go ahead.
My best 40 time was a 5:05, 1988.
Yeah, no, I like it overall. You know, I wouldn't mind like if the DNs wanted to do a 20 instead. Like I get that, but you definitely want to see that 10-yard burst because that's something that they will use consistently, especially if they try. You know, if they do a wide stance and they're just trying to get around the edge, that 10-yard split would be huge, right? So I don't think they get rid of it. I don't think advanced analytics is necessarily changing anything. I think the evolution of athletes is changing things a little bit. You know, back when I ran mine, a 4.3 was rare, right? I ran a 4.34, right? That was my 40 time, and you know, then it was that's top flight speed. Today, I mean, half the dudes out there are running a 4.3 something, right? So, I mean, you got linemen out there running like a 4.5. So, you know, I don't know that the times are as impressive anymore because they are, so many of them are being able to achieve those numbers now. So I don't know if the 40-yard goes away. It's a great, you know, measuring stick, but I think at the end of the day, everybody looks at film for game speed over a controlled environment, padless, straight line measurement. It's a great thing to have on your, you know, on your sheet, right? But outside of that, you're going to experience a 40-yard dash in game time as a receiver like once in your career, and it's because of a blown coverage, not because you're getting a free release. So is it a good number to have? Sure. Is it really a useful stat? I mean, not really.
I want you to run 15-yard backwards and then cover that receiver. That's what I want you to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you kidding? That was a drill that we ran a ton, was the back pedal 45s. You back pedal 45 up. Yeah. If you wanted a good quad killer, that was it. Your legs were toast.
Yeah. Oh man. So couple other things here. And this was something that I thought existed all the time. I see the quarterback doing this. I'm thinking they're communicating with somebody, not necessarily blocking out the crowd noise, but that's because I watch too much NFL, I guess. But anyway, it seems that college administrators have finally decided that it's going to be okay to have player-to-coach communications in the helmet. This is in college football now. Like I said, silly me, I thought they had it all the time. You know, I'm thinking, I'm looking at computers and all this technology, and okay. Well, anyway.
Well, that's why they were so mad about the hand signal stealing from Michigan, right? Because they didn't have the in-helmet communication. So somehow them figuring that out is going to stop the other 11 guys. But hey, whatever.
If they can figure out the signs that the third base umpire sends down to the pitch, or the catcher, hey, it should be very easy to figure out how football hand signals. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, there's a distinct difference there, though. Like, if you know a fastball's coming, you can get used to that. If you know a run play is coming, that doesn't mean anything. Like, if you're on defense and you're paying attention, you can tell a running formation. So, I mean, if you study tape at all, you should be able to figure that out. Knowing what pitch is coming is wildly different, I think.
Don, you come from, I don't think there's a college program better funded than Texas. So Don, why is it taking college football so long to think about having player to coach communications in the helmet. I mean,
that's a good question because we've had the technology for at least 10 years at least. I think it's good for the game. I mean, you have to worry about calling in a play. You can just do it there, instead of having a 30-second clock or 25-second clock, you can have it down to a 15-second clock, make the game go a little bit faster. I mean, I think it'd be kind of fun to have to see that in the game. Like I said, technology's been there for a while. The only issue I might have is someone might go hire someone from MIT and jam the signal or steal the signal from the helmet. I mean, that's always possible in this day of espionage. But other than that, I think it's a good idea.
are you going to talk about Martians setting fires out here in California or what? No. I mean, yeah. The technology has been there, but I mean,
Who did?
Dave, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, I think Paul Brown experimented with it in the 1950s. So it's been around for a very long time. Football is a coach-centric sport. And what I mean by that is it's waiting for decisions from the sideline to come on. And as long as it remains that way, and that's the way it's become, it makes sense. You have the technology available, go ahead and use it. Now, personally, putting on my Black Sox, I would rather see them reduce the play clock to like 25 seconds instead of 40 seconds in the NFL. And I'm not sure what it is in college. And force the quarterbacks to call more of their own plays and have the decision making made by the players on the field. And that's the way rugby is played. Is they expect minimal guidance coming from the sideline, and it's the players themselves that are doing the decision making. And like back in the 70s, a lot of quarterbacks, including Terry Bradshaw, who couldn't even spell cat if he spotted him the C and the A. He called his own plays. And I kind of like that idea because now you're really matching up the players against the players. But that's a different story. Football is going to remain a coach-centric sport. And as long as it does, you might as well have the best technology available, which would include letting these college coaches talk directly to their quarterback.
There's about 4 guys that have jobs that's sitting up there in that booth right now that just boycotted our program. Like I said, this was something that I was surprised that wasn't already there. So, to me, like you said, Paul Brown experimented back in the 50s. So, silly me, I'm sorry.
I think they stopped because they were like picking up like police reports or something. Then the NFL banned it for a while, but then brought it back.
Yeah, I mean, they were, it was a different thing with frequencies and all that. I mean, we had party lines back in those days.
Exactly. Yeah, no, you needed it to be closed circuit for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the SEC is pushing to change the December schedule to a dead period for recruiting. Dan, Don, you've probably been involved in this in a number of ways. Your nephew and some of your family have been involved in football for quite some time. What do you think, Dan, about this dead period where during the month of December the coaches can concentrate on their teams and not have to worry about going out and making recruiting calls?
Well, I think it's a great idea. I really do. To get all schools to abide by it might be a different animal. For example, in the SEC, you'll have teams like Georgia, Alabama, LSU, Texas, Oklahoma playing in the postseason. So, yeah, I mean, they're not going to be able to sit there and concentrate on recruiting because they're getting ready, for the playoffs, right? Then you got schools like, Vanderbilt, A&M, Kentucky, who aren't in the postseason, and they're using their so-called agents and their proxies to go out and do the dirty work. So I don't know. The SEC, I mean, they've taken like cheating to a whole different level. I mean, yeah, I mean, if you can bend it, they'll break it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, have y'all ever been to Louisiana?
Yeah.
Have you ever dealt with law enforcement in Louisiana? I mean,
Oh,
yeah,
no.
it's crazy. So if you know what I'm talking about, then
I've heard stories, but no, this, Arkansas was bad enough for me. I try not to go past Arkansas if I'm driving, for obvious reasons. But anyway,
well, if you drive to Oklahoma, you'll need a foot in alignment on those damn roads.
At least, I'd probably need you to drive for me too, but that's a different story. Bo, what's your take on this here? No recruiting in December.
I mean, the thing is, is they need to figure this transfer portal recruiting thing out. Like they need to make it so that you don't have the portal open during part of the season. They have a couple of openings during, before the season starts. And I get you want to be able to move around if you're, an athlete or whatever. But at some point, like, you got to play for the team that you say you're going to go play for, right? I actually kind of feel bad for college coaches at this point, because not only are you doing the recruiting job that you always had to do, you have to deal with the NIL, where the kids are like, yeah, but what are you going to pay me to come? And then even once you get a kid in the building, you got to keep recruiting them so that they don't jump in the transfer portal even once the season starts to then leave the team. So, I mean, I can't imagine how grueling the recruiting process is for college coaches at this point. So for them to want like a dead period so that maybe they can, I don't know, focus on what it is they're trying to coach, I don't hate that.
Oh man, what do you think, Dave?
Well, I'll take a little different take on it. I mean, it seems to me as who this is benefiting is the haves, because It's like, oh well, we're busy getting ready for the postseason. We're too busy to recruit. Well, hey, let the have-nots have first shot. And guess what? With those transfer portals, it doesn't mean that the haves aren't going to have those players before not too long anyway. So I would say just let it be. And then, for the teams that are sitting at home, now those coaches, instead of preparing for a game, maybe they can be preparing, trying to get players in to improve their program. But, my question would be, and I don't know the answer to this, is it maybe Don, because you work in coaching the high schools, right, Don?
Yes.
Yeah. So, to me, it's what is the impact on the high school players in the programs? What is best for them? And, is it better for them to have that dead period, or is it better for these young kids that are making choices, life in a way, lifelong commitments, or should they have that time, that opportunity to make a decision, to be able to talk to more coaches? I don't know. I don't know the answer to it, but I would kind of defer what is better for the high school players.
Well, the way it works out now, you're allotted, I think it's 3 or 4 official visits, and they always try to get you to come up to a game. Like last year, or 2 years ago, when Texas played Alabama, they had probably 3/4 of the 5-star recruits at the game. I think 1 or 2 came to Texas. A few went to Georgia. A few went to Alabama, Ohio State. Usual suspects. But the thing is, a lot of these kids, if you're playing high school football in Florida, and let's say USC invites you to a game, well, that's kind of stressful. That's a cross-country flight, and even though you're not paying for it, but it's still like it wears on you. You're traveling every weekend. Whereas if you have a dead period in December, that'd be a good time to get the kids on campus. But if it's a dead period, you lose that. So it's a double-edged sword because your top programs are they're trying to prepare for the playoffs, and then you have a dead period where you can't recruit. I would probably, if it were me, I would take signing day, National Signing Day. I'd back it up to maybe the end of February instead of the first Wednesday or whatever it is in February. Well, now they have an early signing period, which I do away with completely. I just bring it February, and that way you get your class in February, and then you can invite them to spring training in March and April. That's just my.
So
my
then
thing.
there would be no reason to have a dead period in December then.
No, because that dead period is keeping some kids from taking their official visits.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that makes
That
sense.
answers my question then.
I mean, that's just, and like I said, it kind of punishes the successful teams because, like I said, they're trying to prepare for, the new playoff system, but they can't concentrate on recruiting at that time. So like I said, just back it back up to maybe the last week of February, your signing period, and that gives the kids a more chance to exhale, take it all in, take their time, visit, and then I think it takes some of the pressure off.
Well, that levels the playing field for everybody then that way.
Yeah.
Don, we're going to talk about your favorite conference again here, so I'm going to start with you. The SEC and the Big Ten would hold the rights to a first-round bye under the upcoming college football playoff format. Don, you said that they, if they could bend it, they'd break it. What's your thoughts on this?
I'm not a big fan of teams having buys. If you look at basketball, there's really no buys in there either. Yeah, so I'm just, in their playoff system. But if you're going to have a bye, let's say that they have the NFL, it would have to be your conference champions, not your seeds. Not necessarily your seeds, but your SEC champion, your ACC champion, your Big Ten champion, your Big 12 champion. That's who'd get the buys, and then make the next tier teams play. But I'm not a big fan of that. I think everybody should play the same number of games. Not give advantage to someone. But if you did do it, I would say okay, conference champions get the bye. Not by conference. Not so well the SEC gets a bye, Big Ten gets a bye, ACC gets no bullshit. Either just the champions or no one.
Dave, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with what Don's saying. I don't like the idea of, hey, these two conferences, because they're so great and all this now, get automatic bids. And I know that it's going to change as they go from a 12 to a 14-team playoff and stuff. But still, I just don't like the idea of automatic buys. And so I would say, give it to the conference champions if that's what they have to do, or even out so that everybody plays the same number of games, which would probably mean a 16 game college football playoff is what that would mean probably.
But we're going to talk about the other 14 games here for about a minute. Which, if you think that the first one is, well, anyway, go ahead, Bo. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm with the guys. Like I think if you're gonna do a bye for these teams, then it should be the conference champions. Otherwise, I mean, it doesn't really make sense anyway. So yeah, no, I'm with the guys. Like that, if you're gonna do it, it needs to be the champs, and if otherwise, don't have the bye weeks at all.
Okay, well, now here's an alternative that they came up with, Bo. Not 16 games, but 14.
Yep.
And under this system, now let me get this right here now. It would be 14 teams to include 3 automatic spots for the Big Ten and SEC. So that takes 6 right there. And then 2 automatic spots for the ACC and the Big 12. So that's 10 seeds gone right there, right? 6 in one and 4 in the other, right? So what's your thoughts on this format, Bo?
I mean, I don't think that's a great format. So the 2 teams per, I mean, I guess
that's terrible.
Yeah, no, exactly. The two teams per I kind of get, right? Because you would have the champion and then the team that was in the championship game, right? So those realistically would be the 2 best teams in that conference. So even if you weren't doing automatic bids, they probably had a good enough record to get in anyway, right? In a 12 or 14 game set or team setup. So I don't know that you necessarily need to call it an automatic spot, but do I think that you're going to get 3 teams from the Big Ten and 3 teams from the SEC routinely? Yeah. I mean, I don't know that you need to write automatic spots, but I would bet you pretty much automatically are going to have 3 from each one of those because the conference is so big, right? And then likewise, the 2 that are coming from the ACC and the Big 12, that's going to be your 2 teams that were in the championship game. So, I mean, on paper, I don't like the way it's called out. In practice, that's probably exactly how it would go down anyway.
Okay.
So what I would do is eliminate the championship game. Has anyone thought about that?
Get rid
Just
of
eliminate the championship game. That way you can take the winner. Yeah. So what you do, you're having the playoff anyway, right? So
the conference tournament.
SEC.
Yeah, he's saying get rid of the conference championship game.
Yeah, so you take the champion of the SEC East, they're in. The champion of the SEC West, they're in. You take whatever divisions, you take those champions in those divisions, eliminate the championship games, and just start your playoffs from there.
Okay, wait a minute. Okay, wait a minute.
I mean, there's a lot of history to being a conference champion, though.
But hold on now. What happens when you have what is it, the Big 18 right now or something like
yes.
that? So if you got it, there's 6 automatic bids. So what 3 are you going to take if you don't have a comment? Are you going to divide that into East and West?
Okay, so what you do, you have your championship. Your champions from the East and the West and the SEC.
You just eliminated the championship. You just eliminated the championship.
Yeah, of the division.
No, but
division champion.
I'm sorry. Okay, the championship, the SEC championship, is the East champion versus the West champion.
Right.
Yeah.
So instead of them playing, you just put them both in.
Those 2 teams are in. If you win the East or you win the West, you're automatically in. Same with the Big Ten, the East and the West, whatever, or North, South, whatever.
So who gets that third automatic? So who gets that third automatic bid? Because they're getting 3 bids.
So then you start looking at the higher ranked other teams, your wild cards.
Yeah, I think what I get stuck on is the word automatic. And I think Bo referred to
Yes.
that. And I look at the college tournament formula, and what they do is they have 10 weight classes. And then for each of those weight classes, they have, I think it's 32-man brackets. But what they do is they allocate automatic bids to each conference. And like the Big Ten is a really strong wrestling conference, so they'll get more. But what they do is they don't. It's not the same every year. It's based on the records of the wrestlers that they have, the strength of schedule, and all this kind of stuff. And then they determine, okay, well, at 125, the Big Ten has 9 automatic bids because that's a strong weight class for them. Maybe 133 is lighter, and they say you only get 7 automatic bids. And then after they allocate all the automatic bids among all the conferences, then they have so many at-large bids. So like in Don's example, if you were using it for the 2 SEC champions of their divisions, East and West Division, they're in. Well, then there might be an at-large bid out there, so that if there was a third team that was really strong, well, then maybe that would go to that team. But I think it's something that should be allocated each year instead of just automatically saying, oh, well, the SEC automatically gets 3. So does the Big Ten. And then because it may be that the ACC with these California schools, maybe they start performing better. And then it's like, I'm not saying it's likely, but it could happen where, hey, the ACC is stronger than the Big Ten. Well, then shouldn't they get the additional bid? And then this way, by having those additional at-large bids, that's the way you could even it out among so that you get the strongest college teams that you can into the football playoff.
Okay. All right. All those sounds like good ideas. Don, what's going on down there in Texas, man? It's almost time. It's pretty soon for spring football, right?
Oh yeah, can't wait.
So what's going on? Tell us a little bit about the only thing that we heard about Arch Manning so far is that he's not playing EA Sports, but what else is going on down there?
So the winter workouts are winding down. They're about to start spring. I'm hearing some good things about the linebackers that Texas brought in for. From the transfer portal, the wide receivers might be better this year than they were last year. We'll see. Texas returning 4 starters on offensive line. So they're looking – I mean, Texas will be pretty salty. I don't know if they could replicate what they did this year, but, as long as Quinn Ewers is continuing to grow, he made large leaps last year. So and then Arch Manning keeps – I keep hearing that it's going to be hard to keep Arch Manning off the field. He's that good. It would not surprise me at all if Arch Manning doesn't take over the job next year. I don't know. Yours is going to have to fight hard to keep his job. That's how good he is. And both of them are probably future first-round draft picks. It's kind of like having – like you had at Oklahoma when you had, not Oklahoma, Alabama when you had Tua and Jalen Hurts on the same team. Both of them NFL quarterbacks. That's just how the talent level is right now. So I'm optimistic about UT. The thing is when you're up on that mountain, you got a lot of people, singing their shots and arrows at you. So it's hard to be king sometimes.
What about your basketball team there, Don? You're doing pretty good there too, right?
They'll play 2-3 games, real well, and they do fine, and they'll lose one. But what's wrong with Texas? They have no depth. Their starting 5 are very good, and then after you get past the starting 5, it sinks pretty low. But hopefully Coach Terry can fill in some recruits. He has a pretty good recruiting class coming in. Well, it's going to Texas. Our baseball team is atrocious right now. The softball team is number 1 in the nation, so we'll take that.
Your women's program used to do pretty good too in softball.
Oh, yeah, they're doing good in basketball too. I mean, I would say UT women's athletics is probably the cream of the crop in the nation right now. You factor in volleyball, just won national championship. Basketball is in the top 10. Softball is number 1. Track and field, I think. Well, they won a conference, but
has Texas ever won the? Has Texas ever won? You know, when they take all the varsity sports and they look at the results, and then they kind of crown the best college athletic program in the country.
Texas won it several times. It's usually between them and Stanford.
All right, yeah, I guess Darrell Royal always wanted Texas to be king, right?
Yeah. Well, you know, they did a little study about which school was number 1 in the NIL, and Texas was number 1. So they better get results. All that money they're putting into it, they better.
Number 1 in the amount of money, or number 1 in the number of recruits that they've attracted?
The amount of money.
Number 1 NIL, number 1.
Yeah.
I think Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, Georgia, they're all in there. All usual suspects, but Texas was number 1.
Yeah, Texas had their own sports network before anyone else. I think they were the first to do that also. Okay, guys, we kind of touched on this the other week. In fact, we touched on it a couple of weeks ago when the judge first made this ruling. Then we kind of touched on what would it mean to others. So now it's kind of finally happened here. The Dartmouth basketball team has voted, I think it was something like 11-2 or something like that, to unionize. Don, I'm going to start down there in the South with you good old boys. What's going to happen when the University of Texas football team decides they want to join the Steamsters Union?
We want to join who?
Well, any union. I just mentioned one. You know, it could be
the
Steve Fitters.
Well, here's the thing. Joining unions, I mean, again, that's another double-edged sword, because if you're making a shitload of money right now, why would you join a union where, you know, they're wanting you to share your wealth with someone else? Because I know that happens in unions sometimes. So, you know, if I'm making X thousands of dollars, whatever, why would I join a union and jeopardize that? Because I might have to take a pay cut. So what I think is funny is that Dartmouth wants to unionize. Now, did Dartmouth all of a sudden become a powerhouse of basketball that I don't know about? I thought Princeton ran the Ivy League in basketball. Dartmouth? Are you fucking kidding me? Dartmouth? So that's a head scratcher. But you know, this big push to unionize, I'm sure some places that might work, some industries, but college athletics, I don't know. To me, I would think that would be detrimental to your income potential. Just saying.
Well, Dave, I mean, Caleb Williams only made $10 million last year in NIL money. I mean, come on. What's wrong with giving the union, you know, at least, well, if he made 10, the union is going to want
tithe. They'll have tithing. He can give 10% of his NIL to the union.
That's right.
I don't think that would go.
That works well for some of those guys, doesn't it? You know.
Yeah. I think, and then the other thing is like in Dartmouth's case right now. Well, then, you know, if you're unionizing, well, then you have to have the management partner that you're forming, your agreement with. So right now, I presume that would be with the university.
Well, no,
so.
I mean, evidently there's some union that has approached them, or else it wouldn't have went this far, because they've got the national labor relations, even though it's in, the appeals process right now. But evidently, like I said, it might be the
Yeah,
stewardship.
but in order for any union, it's like in the NFL. Well, under the collective bargaining there, well, they bargain with the NFL.
Yeah.
Well, with Dartmouth, they have to have a management partner to come to an agreement on what are the work rules going to be. And so right now, if it's one school, now this could change, but right now it would be the university. And maybe if it spread to a couple of universities, eventually it might come down to, well, the universities have to come together and either have the NCAA or somebody else act as their representative in these management labor talks, these negotiations. I'm not really. I'll just have to wait to see what happens. I mean, Dartmouth is Dartmouth. I mean, if this were Alabama's football team, to me, this would be huge news. But hey, maybe it'll change. Maybe I'm sure that maybe other sports teams will be approached. And I guess what my question is what is their goal? What are they trying to achieve?
Well, I would imagine that they're trying to get everybody on the team paid, as opposed to the couple of athletes that
Yeah,
get the NIL money.
Yeah, how many Dartmouth athletes are going to have NIL money?
And so to Don's point, if I'm the star of that team, well, maybe I'm entering the transfer portal because I don't feel like carrying the load of these lesser talented guys that now want to reach into my pocketbook, and I'm just going to transfer out of there.
Well, hey, like I said, maybe that'll work, and maybe it will spread to others. But what's your thoughts on this, Bo? I mean, to me, I'm kind of like, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, knowing, having been a part of a union. I'm sure, some of us have been in unions at one time or another. But even in unions, that equal pay is kind of like a myth. The union president has to get his, and then it kind of trickles down from there.
Shop steward.
So, I mean, what do you think? I mean, like you said, I mean, Caitlin, was it Caitlin Clark? Is she gonna, like vote to, unionize because of her NIL deal, and the chick that's sitting down there, number 13 on the bench, is not getting a dime. She doesn't have lunch money. I mean.
Yep. Well, the problem with the 13th one on the bench there is they don't have a name, image, or likeness they're trying to use. So I mean, I guess the biggest thing here is it's still, they don't really know what they're doing yet, right? As far as the NCAA and the colleges themselves, as far as how they're going to manage the NIL situation. Right? Because they just said, you can do it, open Pandora's box, and then threw the box, as opposed to trying to figure out how to open it in a smart way. They're just like, here we go. And, it wasn't really a great way to start. And I think the schools might listen to a unionized deal, because they might actually put a cap on what some of this NIL money could look like, right? Similar to how the NFLPA does with the NFL, or any of the players unions, right, with the leagues. I think the biggest difference here is the colleges are still pretending that this is amateur sports, and we've solidly left the realm that this is amateur sports. They're paying for sports, right? So do I think that it could benefit from something like that? Sure, but you don't have a singular governing body that you're trying to deal with, right? All these schools are independent. They're not really part of You know, it's not like all the teams have to play with the NFLPA because at the end of the day, it's the NFL, right? These schools don't have to adhere to that. Obviously, as we saw this last year, you can move conferences whenever you want. Like, you can pretty much do whatever you want if you're a school. So I think they'll have a hard time actually getting this union thing to work. But I think the NCAA may entertain the idea of it just to try and get a cap on this NIL money. But do I think it works out? No, because of that exact reason. You're going to have someone like Caitlin Clark who's going to make a ton of money. And why are you trying to lose the money for your likeness because you're good at what you do for a bench player that's never going to see the court?
But now here's the thing, Bo. The NCAA has already had a judge ruled against them in an injunction that they had.
Yeah.
So are we talking about the end of the NCAA as we know it?
I think the NCAA has been working on that for a long time. They've been doing a lot of bad decisions through the years. I think their ability to actively govern has diminished over time. Great example of that was this last year with Michigan, right? You're going into the playoffs, and what did college football playoffs say? That's an NCAA problem. We don't care. And so basically what that means is NCAA can do what they want, but Michigan's playing in our playoffs. So I don't know. I think their ability to have their thumb on everything is slipping away from them.
What do you think, Dave?
Well, I think that there's going to be somebody overseeing college sports, and whether it's NCAA or somebody else, there needs to be somebody overseeing it.
Absolutely.
And so I think that there's going to be some form of the NCAA, and like with any other organization, it changes over time, and they're going to have to either adapt or go extinct. And if they go extinct, well, then they're going to be replaced by something else. But the other interesting thing, unionizing. I mean, if they really wanted to increase their union membership, we'll open it up to all athletes of the school. So then, maybe the badminton team, they can get a piece of that NIL.
Well, I'm sure that you have to get one foot in the door. They can't just break the door down.
Oh yeah.
And with Dartmouth, I'm sure it's going to be first it's going to be the basketball team, then maybe the lacrosse team, then maybe I'm
Hey,
sure.
you know what?
Well, they're Ivy League. They know best. They know what's best for everybody, right?
Yeah.
I feel like we could all still play pickleball. So let's go get some of that NIL money.
I might have to re-enroll into school.
It doesn't take that much to start your own college now. So Don, while we're clowning around here, what do you think here, Don? Is this the last nail in the NCAA's coffin here, or what?
There's a lot of nails in that coffin right now. I think the coffin is nailed shut. I think it's time to start lowering the body into the grave. That's my. It's time to start kicking dirt on it.
Okay. All right, guys. Let's talk some NFL here. Now, this kind of sounds absurd to me because I always thought that the purpose of the onside kick was to catch the other team by surprise, and therefore, it's not a play that you do on a regular basis. But anyway, Don, I'm going to start with you on this here. The new kickoff rule. You see what I said here? I'm looking for black socks, so maybe
get your shovel ready, Don.
That's right.
So the new playoff rule here, this was brought up by special teams coordinators, and it would allow teams to attempt an onside kick when trailing in the fourth quarter, and it requires that they declare that they're going to try onside kick. Now, if the kickoff team declares that they're using an onside kick, then they could potentially use the 6-4 formation to raise the odds of recovery. Well, Don, how do you raise the odds of recovery when the team knows that you're kicking, you've lined up in a certain position, and now the rules are telling you that this is what they're doing? So anyway, your thoughts here, Don.
My thought is that is freaking ridiculous. That's like telling the Germans on June 6, 1944, oh, by the way, we're going to invade right here and we're going to drop some airborne behind your lines. Is that okay? No. Football is all about, catching a guy off guard, running reverses, trick plays, onside kicks, fake field goals. Don't mess with it. And are we sure that special teams coordinators came up with that? Is that where it's actually coming from? I mean, I want to know who's on this rules committee that makes all these weird ass decisions. It's like they meet there and say, "Hey, let's change a rule." It's like Congress. Sometimes you don't need to legislate. Sometimes you just need to let things be. You don't need to pass laws. You don't need to pass law for every little fucking thing that comes up. Same with in the NFL. You don't need to change the rules every year. Play the game like we did back when Lombardi was running the sidelines. I'm so pissed that they protect the quarterback. Speaking as the defensive lineman.
That's not even black socks anymore. That's like a black jumpsuit.
Now, what I think really they need to look at is this thing about targeting. Making a kid miss. The next half of the next game. No, you got 15 yards. He got kicked out of this game. Why make him sit out the next half? Fuck that. Stop making these rules that make no sense. Okay, I'm off my soapbox. Next.
Targeting, I mean, if you're a running back or a quarterback, you are targeting. Well, okay, I'm sorry.
Hell yeah.
I'm sorry. Hey,
hey, James, can you imagine telling Lala Zato you can't hit someone, or Lester Hayes, or John Matuzak, or
tell Jack Tatum, I'm running this route and I'm going to stop right here, but you can't hit me. Okay, right. All right, some of my childhood battles. I'm sorry, Dave. I mean, maybe you have White Sox on. What's your thoughts?
Well, I think I know why they're having to do this. And it's because they're proposing a new kickoff rule, which is going to copy the XFL thing where the kicker is going to be at the 35-yard line, and then the rest of the kickoff team is going to be up by the 40. But I forget which 40. It might even be over the 50. And then the return team, they have to be like within 5 yards of those guys. And nobody can move until the returner fields the kick. And because they're requiring that, then you almost have to declare the onside kick. Because, if you didn't do that, it would be kind of weird because you're going to have the kicker some yards behind the rest of the kickoff team. Now, I don't know if these rules are going to pass, but I suspect that that's what's pushing them to have this special onside kick rule, because you're going to have to change what the whole lineup is going to look like. But, I mean, I think it's kind of silly in terms of you can only do it in the fourth quarter. Why can't you do it at the end of the half? Why can't you do it in the third quarter? Why can't you do it at any time?
What if
whether you declare it or not?
What if you're trailing 30-0 in the fourth quarter?
then
How many
you
times
need
you
way
get?
more than an onside kick anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you have to be trailing in the fourth quarter. By how much do you have to be trailing in the
Right.
fourth quarter?
Yeah.
But I think what they're trying to do, and Pat McAfee actually had a good. He had, there's a little clip where he really explains these proposals very well. It's about a 10-minute clip because I can't watch his whole show. It's like 3 hours long.
Yeah.
But he explains the proposals very well, and he even has like a little illustrator showing where the teams will line up. And the whole purpose of it is the other thing that they'll do, which is to me is a good thing, is I believe that it will eliminate the fair catches in front of the goal line. Where they were getting free yardage to the 25.
Yeah.
They're trying to encourage returns, and so the idea is that if you kick directly into the end zone for a touchback, then it's going to come up to like the 35 or 40-yard line. It's almost as if the ball went out of bounds. But if you kick it in a sweet spot between the 25 or 20 and the goal line, well, then if the ball goes into the end zone for a touchback, it only comes to the 20. Or, hey, now you're in a position of where you have to return it. And at the same time, reduce the risk of injuries because you're reducing the separation between the kickoff team and the returner. So you don't have these guys like tilting into each other full speed. I don't know if this is going to pass. It sounds very complicated. To me, they're over-engineering the game.
Yeah,
they're trying to get a desired outcome, and to me, it's over-engineering. But it'll be kind of interesting to watch if they do it. I would like them to do it for preseason games, maybe, and then see what it looks like. Because
So now you want basketball. I mean, you want football to be like basketball. We want 50 to 40 and 38 to 27. I mean, come on.
right.
What happened to the 10-9 game? The
Exactly.
13 to 12. I mean,
Exactly. Defense.
Yeah.
And the other thing
defense had the game.
Yeah. Now, the other thing for the Black Sockers, they're also talking about banning the hip drop tackle.
Yep.
And as a rugby player, I got to say, usually I was giving up 30 to 50 pounds on average to the guys I was playing against. And I had to drop my weight to the ground to bring them down. There was just no other way. And I think if they ban the hip drop tackle, well, you're going to have then all your secondaries are going to be Deion Sanders. Nobody's going to be tackling in the secondary. They're not going to be able to.
Well, we'll probably talk about those rule changes too. I'm
all right.
I'm setting
but
up.
The kickoff thing, it's over engineering in my opinion. But I like the idea of more returns. But can't they? They need to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah,
so Bo, what are we gonna have? We're gonna have $30 million kickers now because they know how to kick it to the sweet spot.
No, you're not going to have kickers at all here pretty soon. Like, at this point, the only thing that I like about it is it allows them to have an off-balanced line again, right? Because that always was a key element of recovering an onside kick, and the fact that your guys aren't able to run before you kick it, they're not allowed to be off balance anymore, being 6'4", right? Like now they have to be even front. It made it the completion rate of an onside kick this year was like 5% or just below 5%. Like basically you weren't going to get it. Right. So, you got to do something to make that a viable play. So I get that. When it comes to the other kicking rule, man, that better not pass. That is the dumbest. Like, let me get the biggest black socks ever for this. Like, that is the dumbest kickoff idea. That one will hurt the game. Like, I really hope they don't do that. Like, they've already almost eliminated the kicking game. If you're going to do some hokey thing where half your team is down, 20 yards away from your kicker and you got to kick it in a box. It's like, okay, like, come on, guys. Let's not make the game unwatchable. Let's just embrace the fact that it might be a dangerous sport, which is why they give you pads and helmets. And
well, I still can't get over that you don't even have to down the ball in the end zone to get a touchback.
Yeah.
I liked in the old days when, hey, if the returner didn't down the ball, that was a free ball to recover for a touchdown.
Yeah,
if you're on a kickoff team.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of old rules that I liked better. Like I liked when the hash marks were wider, and the game was actually hard for kickers. Like, all of a sudden that third down dive to the middle was a real play when you were at the 15. Right, to try and square up so you could even make that kick. So I mean, there's been a lot of rules that have changed that, I'm not a huge fan of just because we've watched football forever.
I'm sure we'll go through most of them as soon as I see them put up here. So, Bo, the Broncos decided that they would rather eat $85 million in dead cap salary over the next 2 years than to keep Russell Wilson.
That is brutal. I thought what the Eagles did to Carson Wentz was rough, right? Because they ate 44. I think that was their total. And 85 mil. I think the craziest part about this is he signed a contract extension for 242.6 something like that $1 million, right? An extension of which he'll never take a snap under. They're going to give him all this money to never play under that contract. That is amazing to me.
Dave, talking about profit and loss. I mean, come on, how the hell do you do this?
Well, one article I read said that the big disconnect, and I don't know how true it is. It's just one article I read. But they said the real disconnect between Sean Payton and Russell Wilson was Russell Wilson wanted to freelance too much. And the problem was that Sean Payton would want certain plays called at the beginning of the game to kind of set up the defense for later on in the game. He would give them a look with the idea, hey, later on we're gonna exploit this. But then Russell Wilson would freelance. And so then they would lose that opportunity. So now, that was frustrating Peyton's wanting to call a game to take advantage of their tendencies. So, in terms of Wilson, hey, power to his agent, man. He got over big time. He's making a bunch of money, and who knows where he's going to go. And I like the idea of, maybe the Raiders will pick him up. They're in Las Vegas. They like to gamble. So maybe he'll end up in Vegas.
Stay in the division would be hilarious to watch.
Well, now he can, because since they're releasing him, he can go wherever he wants.
No, that's what I mean, though. Like, if he stayed in the division, plus, he's getting paid anyway, so he could potentially go play relatively cheap somewhere.
I don't think his wife is a Las Vegas type, but Don, what do you think? 85 mil. Was this good for the Broncos? It was certainly good for Russ, but I mean, what do you think here, Don? 85 mil in 2 years.
Hey, nothing surprises me. That doesn't really surprise me because if you look at recent history, Texas A&M paid Jimbo Fisher a lot of money not to coach. So that's kind of the same deal if you think about it. I think Sean Payton.
Coaches are different though. Coaches are different because it doesn't hit the cap. Like this hits the cap.
Yeah,
like this hurts the team.
Yeah, I'm just about the principle of the thing, but that's a lot of coin to be wasting right there. So
Obviously, they didn't. They
they-
wanted him gone pretty bad. $85
Right.
million worth.
Yeah, when you're like, I'll eat 85 mil and I will
So-
tank my team for a year just for you to go away. That's amazing.
That's what I'm
you know,
saying.
Sean Payton might.
Go ahead, Don.
Sean Payton might have something up, so you just never know. I mean, Sean Payton is. You have to ask yourself: did he make that decision on his own, or was there some other stuff going on? But that's a very severe scenario right there to have your cap take that hit. And if Dave's right about Russell Wilson freelancing, I guess Payne's like, when your name is Drew Brees, you can freelance all you want, but you're not Drew Brees. So I think it just sent a huge message.
Well, and it's not unusual. I mean, Bill Cowher used to talk about Ben Roethlisberger freelancing all the time, and he would just say he would kind of hold his breath and like, you better make it work, And,
Yeah, but Ben didn't cost $80 million or $85 million either.
There's that.
That's what you have to think. 85 mil. I mean, that's the economic of some of those shithole countries that
It's just money, James. It's just money.
Yeah.
Big Ben did his damage in the. He did his damage in the hot tub.
I could live off the interest. Do you understand
sure.
what I'm saying? I could live off the interest quite comfortably, even here in San Diego. Okay.
Drew Brees also went off script. The difference is him and Sean Payton played together so long that even when he was off script, he was just into a different piece of the script, right? Like they worked so well together that even when he was freelancing, into something that. What's that?
First of all, I want all you guys to stop insulting Drew Brees, comparing him to Russell Wilson, or even putting them in the same sentence. Yeah, I mean, come on.
Oh no, I was just saying, Drew Brees would freelance as well. He just would be freelancing into something Sean Payton also wanted to use.
Drew Brees was throwing over guys that he couldn't even see over. I mean, please, and being accurate. I mean, come on, like I said, don't insult Drew. He did. Anyway, all right, okay. Here's another one that kind of got to me here, and Bo, I want you to start this here, okay? Okay.
All right.
He's an unprecedented. We want him to be a buck for life. That's what the GM said at the combine when he was talking about Mike Evans. So 30-year-old Mike Evans gets a two-year contract for $52 million, 35 of it guaranteed. Now, I don't know about you, but does this mean that Mike Evans has only got 2 more years to live? A buck for life? I mean, what the hell does that mean? A buck for life, and you give him a 2-year contract. Now the money is fine. I understand that he's going to be set for life. I understand that part. But what? How does this count? To you, does 32 years, and then he's gone off into the sunset? What does that buck for life in a 2-year contract? How does that equate to you, Bo?
I mean, all things being equal, 32. A lot of receivers start to lose some speed, so I mean, they may not necessarily want to tie themselves to him after that point. And I think they have some real questions as far as who's going to be under center after that, right? Like, I'm sure they're going to give Baker a couple-year extension, right? But from there's a lot of questions that are going to surround this team. So I don't know how much further they wanted to go in on a older receiver at this point, or at least at that point. So, I mean, buck for life, that's that's a laughable statement. None of these teams have loyalty to these guys. So, none of that's a real thing. But I think the 2-year deal gets Mike Evans the money that he wanted. And if they do extend Baker, they have a real shot at, continuing to win this division over the next couple of years. But after that, I think they're going to be looking at rebuilding a team. So, the other teams in their division aren't going to be as bad as they've been. So I think they have a couple more cracks at winning their division. I think that's kind of where this contract, it's the way I see this contract anyway.
Don, how do you see it? Buck for life, 2 years.
Well, let me tell you, Mike Evans is an outstanding receiver, and he 30 years old isn't that. I mean, I think about other people that position, like Jerry Rice. I mean, he still had a lot of years after 30, but I would have given him probably a 4-year, not a 2-year. I would have doubled that, just out of appreciation and loyalty. I think Mike Evans is still going to catch a fair amount of passes. I think he's still a dangerous. I mean, he's one of these guys who can high point a football with the best. So I just think that the money's great, but the 2 years might be a little. It's like borderline insulting, maybe. But I hope he has a good season. Even though he's an Aggie, I am a Mike Evans fan.
What's your thoughts there, Dave?
Life is short. Well, I mean, one thing, Mike Evans, 10 years in the league, he's gained over 1,000 receiving yards every year. That's pretty
amazing.
Phenomenal. That's really phenomenal. He's, but the thing, I'm not crying for the guy. He's already made $110 million. I mean, and so, and the other
those old dollars
guaranteed,
are gone, man. We're talking about new money now. What are you gonna?
He's going to have 145 million earned at least, if not more. And I think it's kind of the calculation is the law of diminishing returns. Maybe for the next 2 years, if he gains over 1,000 yards, which is very conceivable, well, and they get into the playoffs and maybe advance, money well spent. But beyond that, how much more is he going to be able to provide? And I don't see it as an insult or anything like that. They negotiated. Who asked for the 2 years? Did the agent ask for the 2 years, thinking, okay, well, we'll finish this out and then go for another contract?
Mm-hmm.
Or did the team ask for the 2 years? If I were the team, I would rather go with just the 2 years, especially if I'm paying, that kind of money, because I'm kind of looking down the line when he's 33, 34. Is he going to continue to be putting up 1,000-yard seasons? I'm not so sure. So I'm fine with it, and I think that he's been more than well compensated.
Dave, what did you think about the Bucs putting the tag on safety Antonio Winfield Jr.?
Well, I mean, I think it's a good move, especially if they can work out a long-term contract with them. And now I don't know which type of tag that they put on him, but
I believe it was a non-exclusive. But
so the non-exclusive teams would have to give up 2 first-round draft picks.
Correct.
If they don't match it. So if that's the case, it's a great move.
Exactly.
I mean, you got the guy. Now you got another year to maybe work out a longer-term deal with them. And in the meantime, if anybody wants to snap him up, I'll take 2 first-round draft picks anytime.
Mm-hmm.
What's your thoughts there, Don?
I can barely hear you.
I said, what's your thoughts there?
On the what? My computer was buffering.
Can you what was your thoughts on the Bucks franchise and safety Antonio Winfield?
Oh wow. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. They know they have an idea of what they have, what's best for them. He's a phenomenal player. I don't know if he's the franchise, but I mean the Bucks are going to do what the Bucks do. I would say that along with that deal with Mike Evans and Baker Mayfield coming back, I think in the long run it's a good decision. We'll see, but to me he's borderline. He's on the bubble, if that makes sense.
Okay. I think I started this question off with you, Bo. So we'll go to.
I didn't answer that one, but I'm actually I'm with Dave here. I like I like them tagging him because if someone does offer him something, they don't follow up on it. They get two first rounders, which is cool. And then if no one offers them anything, they get him for the year. The only thing that's unique about it, as far as the tag, is once the regular season starts, you're not allowed to negotiate anymore. So I always thought that was kind of a weird thing. You have to wait through the entire regular season before you can try and work on an extension. I always thought that was just like a weird, just kind of a weird element to the franchise tag. But yeah, I mean, in this scenario, you can keep him on the team. You were going to have to pay him anyway. But at the same time, if someone picks him up, you take those 2 first rounders, you're only locked up on a guy like Mike Evans for the next 2 years. Baker's probably going to have something similar. So, I mean, it's not a bad way to go.
Okay. Yeah, I think I had you start the first part of the question. That's right. Okay.
Yep.
I'm going to kind of do this one the same way. The Chiefs use a non-exclusive franchise tag on L'Jarius Sneed, Bo. Do you think the Chiefs will retain the services of both Jones and Sneed for their possible three-peat?
I think it gets a little bit easier for the Chiefs in this way. Like if generally a tag is viewed negatively, right? But if you were on one of these teams and potentially a cap casualty for a long-term deal, but you can get the tag to try and make history, I don't think I hate the tag as a player, right? Now, do they get to keep him? Tough to say, right? Because again, at the end of the day, it's a non-exclusive, which means if someone does offer you something, and even if it's in the ballpark, but you can get 2 first-round picks, you might take them first-round picks. So, I mean, it's not a bad deal. Like in this case, again, they're going after history. I don't think any player is going to be too mad if KC puts a franchise tag on them.
Don, your thoughts?
Well, I'll agree with Bo on that one. You got a chance to go for the repeat championship. To me, it's a no-brainer. I mean, so I'm agree with Bo on that. That's just it's a win situation.
Dave.
Yeah, and I think the NFL really helped Kansas City out whenever they came in with a very lucrative salary cap, which was about $10 million over what the original estimate was. And I think the NFL wants a three-peat. And, so now all of a sudden, now Pat Mahomes and Kelsey are the greatest of all time quarterback and tight end. Yep. Who's Tom Brady and Gronkowski? Who are those guys? That's old news. And if I'm Kansas City, I want to keep as many of the elements that got me to the 2 Super Bowls as I can. Now, you mentioned that they're looking at drafting this Xavier Worthy, but I would still try to keep Jones. I mean, I would try to keep everybody that contributed to that team that I can, and then build even stronger through the draft. And so that I go into this season with as strong a team as possible so that I could make history. I mean, that would be huge. I mean, the Steelers had a shot in '76, but that Turkey Jones and then the injuries to Franco and Rocky Blyer at the end of the season ended that chance. But that was a really viable chance for a three-peat. But that was in the '70s when it was a lot easier to keep teams together. To do a three-peat in the 21st century with all the parity rules and all that, that's pretty incredible.
Don, what do you think? Mock drafts have the kid that ran that record-breaking 40, Xavier Worthy, going to the Chiefs. They did make a little cap room. They got rid of Valdez Scanlon. But what do you think there? We were just talking about, whether the 40 was viable or not. But people say this kid has good hands, too.
Xavier Worthy has excellent hands. If Kansas City lucks out and gets Xavier Worthy, that's going to be a game changer. Well, I say game changer. I mean, the game's already changed for them, but, I mean, it's just going to add salt to the wound to the rest of the NFL. X Worthy is he catches passes. He's a good kick returner, good punt returner. He does it all. So if Kansas City gets Xavier Worthy, they must have sacrificed some virgins or something to get that, because that's like that's like unfair to everyone else. It's crazy. The whole thing about
they do have the thing that balances out, right? They got rid of Scantling, but they kept Tony for whatever reason. So they still have a guy that's going to deliberately throw the ball on the ground.
Well, but he can also, they still have a guy that's expendable. That's another way to look at it.
Oh, he's definitely expendable. I was really surprised that he wasn't cut, but Scantling was. Now, I understand Scantling was significantly more expensive, but you didn't let this guy suit up for the Super Bowl. I mean, you obviously aren't loving this guy. You might as well just, pocket the $4 million his contract was and make some moves, because you weren't letting him play anyway. Oh, sorry, he was injured.
Yeah. So, what do you think about if Kansas City could possibly get Worthy? Is it a game changer, like Don said?
I mean, they've been missing a fast guy, and he does have good hands. So if they have someone that can stretch the field again, I mean, we saw what they were able to do with Tyreek. I mean, if they got somebody that they can stretch the field with, it's a problem. So ain't nobody want to see that.
Ain't nobody want to see that.
Hey, I'm gonna add something to this too. Without the all that said and done, Xavier Worthy is a very good person. So he's known for being a calming influence on the locker room. He has a cool head. He's always praising his teammates. He kind of deflects praise from himself. So on top of that, you're getting a good citizen. So just think about that. Runs great routes.
Yeah. There's some tape on him. There's some YouTube videos on him, so you can look him up and watch some of his stuff if you want. Don, the coach used the franchise tag on Michael Pittman Jr. The last time the coach used the franchise tag was on Pat McAfee. Yeah. Okay. So, Don, do you think the Colts will make Pittman a Colt for life?
I think they might make Pittman have a sports show in ESPN, maybe. No, but yeah, I mean, Colt for life, sure. I mean, I can see that happen. That's a very distinct possibility.
Dave, what do you think?
Well, they got the franchise. They got him for at least another year, but he's going to want to be paid, and so then it comes down to what's their cap situation going to be like next year, and can they hold on to him? Because Indianapolis, they're busy trying to build their roster up, and so sometimes you're forced into difficult decisions. I was just trying to take a look at what their cap situation is. And with it looks like they got plenty of room right now. So there's a good chance that they could sign them. They got like $50 million of space right now under the rule of 51. So depending on how it plays out next year, they could if they want to. But he's going to want to be paid if he has a good season.
Bo?
Yeah, I mean, it's this one feels like they're just kicking the can down the road because they could pay him. But, so interesting. I mean, and I guess at the same time, maybe they just weren't coming together on their contract talks this time through. So, maybe he is in that situation that Kirk Cousins found himself in a couple of times where you just bet on yourself, hope you have a big year, and go get that payday. But
they still have until September to sign him to a longer term deal.
No, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Although that still, it uses up your franchise tag. So it's not like you could use it somewhere else if you do end up doing that.
But it's been used for this year.
Correct.
So that's.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, but yeah, I mean, they have time to sign him. And this one was non-exclusive as well, I believe. So, I mean, if somebody gave up some draft picks, I'm sure they'd take them as well. But yeah, I mean, they need him. If they want to be competitive, they need him on the team. So,
Don, who has the most wins next season, the Jets or the Broncos?
So the Broncos without Russell Wilson, they'll be breaking new quarterback. I would say the Jets, just because of recent developments. If you asked me this question, 2 months ago, I'd say about Broncos probably, but I'd say Jets.
Oh. Who do you think, Dave?
Well, I'm going to go with the Broncos. And the big question mark is who do they get in the quarterback? They could draft somebody, or they could sign somebody. Maybe Jameis Winston. Wasn't he with Sean Payton? I'm not sure if they shared time in New Orleans. But
I believe they did.
They did.
Whatever quarterback they get, better be somebody that gets along with Sean Payton, because we already know what he's willing to pay to get rid of him. So
it'll be true.
I'll go with the Broncos because I think that despite all this, I think that they're a little bit better off organizationally than the Jets. The Jets just seems to have a cloud over them.
The Jets always are like, they got a hand grenade in their hand, they pull the pin, and then throw the pin.
Yeah.
Like that is the Jets organization to me.
Good analogy there. They got to remember that one there. Okay. Okay. Your turn here, Bo. Seattle has cut Jamal Adams. He's among the roster decisions that the Seahawks had to make. As I think of it right now, I don't know if the Seahawks have a safety on their roster. But Bo, tell us about that looming roster cuts and their draft needs.
Yeah, so I mean, Jamal Adams leaving is not a surprise at all, right? Like, he's been injured largely the entire time he's been in Seattle. His cap hit is huge. So you knew he was going to be gone. Seattle also had some cap issues, right? Like coming into this, they were pretty tight as far as cap numbers. So you knew cap casualties were going to happen. So he was going to be the first one dealt most likely. And obviously that did come through. You knew Will Dissly, the tight end, was probably going to go just because it doesn't cost them much to get him off the books. Quandre Diggs, he got released yesterday. So, which is one of their top safeties. And, but the big thing is he was an expensive safety. And so they're trying to free up some space because, they do have some guys that they can draft. But one of the big things is they brought over Leonard Williams, right? And they gave up a second and a fourth, I believe, to pick that guy up. But you don't give up that kind of stuff to not try and re-sign that guy. So, they get rid of Jamal Adams, they get rid of Diggs, they get rid of Dissly. That's what, so far. I would imagine there's a few more cap casualties on the horizon here. But in doing that freed up about $40 million for the Seahawks. So you can see what they're trying to do. They're trying to get a little bit younger. They're trying to get within a cap number that makes sense because at the end of the day, they need to transform a defense that wildly underperformed over the last couple of years. There was a lot of money tied into it. There was a lot of names on it, but the defensive unit was bottom 5 the last 5 years in a row. So if McDonald's going to come in and get this defense turned around, you're going to have some cuts that you may not necessarily love. It was kind of a bummer to see Diggs end up off the team because he has been productive for this defense, but they're going to start trimming some parts because it's a unit that didn't perform.
Okay. Well, all right, Dave. Your turn.
Suck it to me.
Well, we got quarterbacks, DBs, quarterbacks, running backs, offensive linemen, defensive tackles, defensive ends. Oh, my. Dave, do we explore the free agent market? Is Deontay Johnson and Coach Tomlin on the same page? And Dave, I sent you Ryan Clark. His take on our quarterbacks is much the same as mine. If you commit to Kenny Pickett this year, then that means if you draft someone next year, you still have 2 more years before we have a viable quarterback, unless we get lucky and draft a Patrick Mahomes or someone of that ilk.
Oh, you get Wilson?
Even Stephen A. with his receding hairline, I have to kind of, agree with him. I don't see us being a viable team putting Kenny Pickett back on the field and having Rudolph as his backup. The very definition of insanity is keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So, Dave, keep me out the crazy house.
All right. Well, first, let me talk Deontay Johnson. Omar Khan during the combine, he gave his interview and he kind of slipped. He was in the middle. A question came up about Deontay and he started to talk about, well, yeah, we're having convert, and then he stopped himself, cut himself mid-word. And so obviously he was saying that, hey, they are talking to Deontay Johnson. So now, since that time, the immediate interpretation is that they were working on some type of a deal. But then subsequent to that, they've reported that he may be wanting to be traded. Well, the thing is that right now on the 16th of March, he is due a $3 million signing bonus. And so I would imagine that if, and it's a big if, they are going to trade Deontay, they're going to try to do that before the 16th so that they don't incur that payment, which would sock them on their salary cap. But to me, it's kind of like, well, why do you want to create a hole in your lineup in 2024? Yeah, they can draft a wide receiver, but is that wide receiver going to be fully ready? And you need somebody to complement George Pickens, because if you don't have Deontay on the field, who else do they have? They're just going to blanket Pickens and Freiermuth, and then they're going to shut down that passing attack. Deontay Johnson is a valuable commodity. So I think that we're going to quickly find out whether he indeed is going to be back with the team in 2024. I believe he is. Now, after 2024, all bets are off, because in 2025, he's scheduled to be a free agent. And then the team has to calculate, well, hey, Pickens is going to be coming up to the end of his rookie contract. Can we afford to keep both of them? So I think that the real decision with Deontay is going to come up after 2020. After 2024, not before. But we'll see. We'll find out quickly next week if I'm right or wrong. In terms of the quarterback situation, Stephen Smith isn't the owner of the Steelers. Ryan Clark is not the coach or the offensive coordinator of the Steelers. Art Rooney II owns them, and Mike Tomlin coaches them. And although he hasn't said much, Arthur Smith is the offensive coordinator. But both Art Rooney and Mike Tomlin said that they wanted to re-sign Mason Rudolph. Both of them said that they have confidence in Pickett, as did Omar Khan during his thing, but they want to have him compete. So what I think what that means is that they're going to attempt to re-sign Rudolph, but he's a free agent. And so right now there's some talk about, well, maybe he's worth a 2-year deal for $10 million, about $5 million a year. But that's not that much. And he could easily be picked up by another team that feels that they need him. But even if they do re-sign Rudolph, they're still they may draft a quarterback later in the draft. And they're probably going to sign another free agent, because they're going to go into camp with 4 quarterbacks. But I think that in terms of who they might sign as a free agent, Alex Kozora had given like a list of free agent prospects for the Steelers based on connecting the dots, links to some of the coaches from prior times, also scheme fit, and also past practices by the Steelers. And these are quarterbacks that would not break the bank, but probably would fit into this scheme for 2024, with Pickett being the guy, but bringing in some competition. And you have Sam Darnold, who was with San Francisco last year, Drew Lock from Seattle, Jacoby Brissett from Washington, Ryan Tannehill, because of his link with Arthur Smith, from Tennessee, and Easton Stick from the LA Chargers, who was their number 3, but their new quarterbacks coach came from the Chargers. So that's why Easton Stick is on there. Not fancy names, but that's who Pittsburgh is likely going to sign, somebody like that. And I don't see a trade for Justin Fields, although everybody says that, hey, he's becoming more affordable, in part thanks to Caleb Williams, in part by lack of interest from other teams. But if they were to trade for Justin Fields, then I think that they have to cut bait with Kenny Pickett now. And then you have another question mark: is he really the guy? Because he's had so many turnovers. So that's that. For all these other quarterbacks, defensive backs, Alex posted he had 49 prospective free agents, because the Steelers, they're always known for building through the draft, and that's really become kind of a myth. The Steelers for the last several years have been signing free agents all along, just not the high name guys. But one of the positions you didn't mention is punter, because they cut Presley Harvin.
Yeah, yeah.
So 3 of the punters that they might be looking at are Tommy Tonson from Kansas City, Braden Mann, who was on the roster to begin with at the beginning of the season from the Jets, or Corey Bohorquez from Cleveland. So those are 3 possibilities. I got like 40 names here. I could go through them all, but I think that would be kind of boring. But there's plenty. I think a couple names to highlight on the defensive line. Javon Kinlaw from San Francisco. Now, this could all change if the teams re-sign their own players.
Yeah.
But Javon Kinlaw is a possibility. There's talks about maybe Jordan Brooks from Seattle at linebacker, because that's a hole that they need to fill. Cornerback, for example, among these 5, it includes Sean Murphy-Bunting from Tennessee. At safety, they didn't mention, although I've seen his name in an article, but he's tagged now, Sneed. But,
Sneed.
like Taylor Rapp from Buffalo, maybe, or Julian Blackman from the Colts. So there's a lot of names in the mix, and I would anticipate that the Steelers are going to be signing some free agents, but not the high-end free agents.
Dave, I want you to go back to that quarterback list. Then I want you to add the 2 quarterbacks in competition from the Steelers. And I want you to tell me which of those quarterbacks do you think makes us able to compete with the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, Cincinnati, Joe Burrow, and on a good day, whoever the hell is quarterback in the Cleveland Browns, even if it's me. Tell me which one of those guys on that quarterback list that you named that you think is going to be able to consistently give us a winning edge, or at least,
you had me till you said consistent.
There's already a problem to your question, and the problem is that none of those quarterbacks play defense.
Yeah.
And the reason that Pittsburgh has been able to beat Baltimore with or without Lamar Jackson more often than they lose is because of their defense has bottled them up. And so in order to keep up with those teams, they need to have the defense, and we're looking at the secondary and a front 7 that can put pressure on them and contain, and a secondary that can cover against those potent offenses. In the case of Cincinnati, they didn't make the playoffs, but they didn't have Joe Burrow. He's going to be back. Defense. In the case of Lamar Jackson, he demonstrated what he can do by staying healthy. Again, what you need to do to control them is defense.
But
let me finish, James. If you have a quarterback that can avoid turnovers, that's why I don't like Justin Fields. What Kenny Pickett did do good, he didn't throw a lot of touchdowns, but he protected the ball. He didn't turn it over.
I mean, he didn't have the ball a lot.
And in order to succeed in the AFC North for Pittsburgh, they have to have the defenses that can contain those offenses.
But you have to be able to put points on the board. You got to put.
No, you have to put more. You have to put more points than the other team.
Right.
Okay. If they score 9, you got to score 10. If they score 24, you got to score 25. And Pittsburgh's demonstrated that they can do that with Baltimore. And so right now, with Kenny Pickett, they're at the end of their evaluation for him. One is, the issues with Kenny Pickett. The primary one is staying healthy, staying on the field. He's had several concussions and he's gotten hurt a couple of times, forcing him to miss games. Number 2 is he bails out of the pocket too often. And number 3 is that some of his passes haven't quite been on target, questioning his arm. But the people that are on the Pickett side, because there are those Pittsburgh fans that are, well, they look at the offense that he was having to operate in. And in one metric, they were saying that Pittsburgh had the 28th easiest offense to defend against. In other words, the defenses didn't have to work very hard to contain the Pittsburgh's offense, not because of the quality of the quarterback, but because of the simplistic scheme that they had. It was too easy. Yeah. And that zone coverage they couldn't penetrate it, because what Canada's offense focused on were curls and these short routes that the zones just kind of ate up, and they weren't penetrating it. So they're going to give Pickett 2024 to see if he's the guy. I mentioned it in our traffic before, between Terry Bradshaw and Ben Roethlisberger. Yeah. Pittsburgh had 13 starting quarterbacks, 13 quarterbacks that started games over a 20-year period. I'm hoping that that's reduced. Right now, since Ben retired, you got 3 quarterbacks that have started games for Pittsburgh: Trubisky, Rudolph, and Pickett. Now, are they going to have to go to a 4th or a 5th in 2025? They might, but I think what they're looking at is they want to see if Pickett can perform under a new offensive scheme. And with the quarterbacks I named, and this is who Alex had listed here, the idea with these guys are basically as backups to support them, and Rudolph being his primary competition.
Yeah. I'm tired of 10-7 seasons. I don't want to win a season. I want to be the team that beats Kansas City, or at least has to play them and go to the Super Bowl.
Well, I mean, there are guys that are saying that Pittsburgh should trade for Fields and then use their first-round draft pick on a quarterback, which I think is a big mistake, because you might be passing over a center that you really need. They have a lot of holes, and you named them.
Yeah.
You can get Wilson.
Offensive line, defensive tackles. They got a lot more holes.
You can get Russell Wilson cheap.
There's a lot of people in Russell Wilson's, that would like to see him because they want immediate results, but he's not a long-term solution. He's not.
No, and I don't think Pickett is either. I think if you're going to try Pickett for 2 years, get Russell Wilson on the pick.
Pickett has more potential upside than Russell Wilson.
Then let him sit back and learn 2 more years. But if you're going to keep him, we'll see how that turns out. Ron, I know you've been back there kind of quiet for a while. Why don't you give us your final thoughts for the evening, my man?
Okay, final thoughts. So I've been putting this together in my head all week. So first of all, congratulations to Caitlin Clark for becoming the all-time scorer in basketball. But there's a big Beyonce butt coming up. Kim Kardashian butt. Okay, so let's revisit Pistol Pete Maravich. The guy who averaged 44 points a game in college, the guy who played without a 3-point line, a guy who played without the shot clock, a guy who played against grown-ass men. There's a coach at LSU, I can't remember who it was, but he went back and watched all these games of Pistol Pete, and whereas if he had the 3-point line, he would have been averaging 56 points a game. 56 points a game. That is unbelievable. Oh, and freshmen were allowed to play back in the 70s when he was playing. Freshmen were allowed to be varsity. So Caitlin Clark's had 4 years of varsity. Pistol Pete had 3. Caitlin had a 3-point line. Maravich didn't. Caitlin had a shot clock. Maravich Pistol Pete didn't. Caitlin played against women. Pistol Pete played against grown-ass men. So, in my opinion, not taking away from Caitlin Clark, but Pistol Pete is the scoring leader in NCAA. Period. End of story. That's my final thought.
That's a nice one. Pete Maravich, born in Aliquippa, PA.
Kind of sounds like me when I talk about LeBron being the scoring leader with 2,500 three-pointers, and Kareem had one. But I digress. Bo, here's the final thoughts here.
Yeah, so I just got back from Maui, right? And so I went through and checked out Lahaina that was burning down last year. And although it has faded from the headlines, it's an area that still needs a lot of support. So if you're watching this and you are looking to support a good cause, Lahaina is still mostly just ash and rubble. It's closed to the public to be able to get in there. They're basically just still removing debris. It's just foundations and ash is primarily what Lahaina is still. So anything that you can do that can help the area, obviously, would be greatly appreciated by the people. Because again, it's no longer a headline because it's not on fire anymore, but the destruction is very much still there.
That's a big conspiracy theory too.
Blue Rouge.
Well, one day we might have to talk about that.
Yeah.
Especially if you go back and there's a bunch of hotels and stuff on that property.
There is that. There's a lot of things that are spray painted around the area that says Lahaina's not for sale. See,
yeah. They always say that until somebody comes there with a sack full of money.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Amazingly, for being an island, water rights was a big issue there.
Yep.
Control of the water, and this is an island surrounded by water.
Yep.
But that it was fresh water that they were.
Yeah, water everywhere, but none to drink.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Dave, take us home.
Well, I really like the both Don's and Bo's thoughts. My thoughts for tonight are kind of going to next week, and come Monday we have the legal tampering period that begins, and even though teams have probably been talking to agents, kind of a nod and a wink before this, all of a sudden this is going to become public. We're going to start hearing where these different free agents are going, what teams are re-signing players that were scheduled to be free agents. And then on the 13th, well, then that becomes at 4:00. Then all of a sudden the new league starts. So I think that's an exciting period. I'm looking, all 32 teams are going to be reconstituting themselves into their 2024 editions, and I'm looking forward to that. So there's going to be about a 2-week period, but especially the first few days next week, a huge flurry, and then we're going to be getting into the NFL draft. So looking forward to it.
All right, guys. Well, hey, as always, great show. We're making sure we get off in time there. Dave has some obligations, and hey, I know Bo is tired talking all day. And Don, we didn't hear Ranger tonight. I wanted to hear from Ranger, but we didn't get anything from Ranger tonight. So
Ranger's downstairs, so he's good.
All right, guys.
So guys,
have a good week.
Hey,
see everybody next week.
Yep.
Real
Take
quick,
it easy, guys.
I won't be here next week. I'm on spring break, so I won't be on the show next week.
Where are you going this year, Don?
I am going to Colorado.
Oh my goodness, Don, stay away from those stores. When it says dispensary, those aren't the ones you're thinking about.
Yeah. Watch the candy you're eating out there.
That's right.
Hey, they sell that in Texas now.
Yeah.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't have to go to Colorado for that. I get it down the street if I need it that bad.
Have a good night, guys. See
Take
everybody
care.
next
All
week.
right, guys.
Yeah.